I think this is on. It is. Hi, everyone. Great to have you here today. As I was introduced, Jessica Lindell. I'm thrilled to be here because I did my MBA at Cal, and I'm really excited about what Decode has turned into, and all the work that you guys have put into this. So thanks again for having us. I'm really happy to have the opportunity to interview Ingrid. As you heard, my role is social impact at Unity, so I really focus on how we create purpose with our technology. For those of you who don't know Unity, Unity essentially empowers everyone around the world to recreate the real world in real-time 3D technology. We were born out of video games initially and have moved into almost every industry imaginable with virtual reality and augmented reality, and are powering what you hear oftentimes in the news today, every day almost, which is the metaverse. So thanks again for having us. Ingrid, I'm so excited to interview you here today. Can you start out by telling us a little bit about your career and background?
Sure. So I started at Unity about 5.5 years ago as the head of product for monetization, and then grew that business from a small kind of idea, and a couple of years later expanded my role to become general manager of monetization and then operate solutions. And what that means is just instead of just being responsible for product, being also responsible for engineering, sales, marketing, and operations. I actually started my career, I did chemical engineering at university, and decided that actually, during my last year of college, that chemical engineering wasn't quite the career that I wanted to pursue, and did a 180 to apply for investment banking jobs. So my first job was at Morgan Stanley as an investment banking analyst, and did that for 3 years. Decided again that I didn't want to be a banker for life, and decided to go into business school. So I went to Harvard Business School for 2 years, and then was very curious about the tech industry and moved over to Yahoo at Silicon Valley. And Yahoo was great, to take a chance on me. Had no experience in tech, nor in product management, and was able to work in some of the most beloved products of Yahoo, which was Yahoo Answers. Many of you may probably be too young for any of these products, but Yahoo Answers, Flickr, which was one of the first photo sharing Web 2.0 product back in the day, and the Yahoo front page as well. So that was my last job, was to be the head of product for Yahoo.com. And decided that I was really inspired by the team that started Flickr that I was working with, and was inspired to do a startup myself. So I did my a little company in mobile advertising that got acquired by Rubicon Project, and from Rubicon then I came to Unity.
Thanks so much, Ingrid. Incredibly diverse background, and then you ended up in gaming. So how did you make that transition from essentially chemical engineering into gaming?
I think that was the path, right? It wasn't a straightforward path. I did not have any gaming background other than playing Candy Crush. But I think that the opportunity at Unity that attracted me was this amazing platform with millions of really passionate developers creating something from scratch, and the opportunity to help them build businesses on top of that was really attractive.
So many of you may not know this, but Ingrid has built $1 billion business in less than 10 years, which is almost unheard of, even here in Silicon Valley. So Ingrid, can you just walk us through how that happened?
Well, I think, first of all, there is a lot of luck involved in this. I think secondly, being in a big market, I think is important. So the business that we started within Unity started off in advertising. Advertising is going to be like a $300 billion business next year, and we then evolved into adding hosting and analytics. which is going to be like $1 trillion business in the next 5 years. So I think being in a big market is, your chances is probably going to be bigger. And then last but not least is I believe great teams build great businesses. So I have the privilege of working with the best in the business every day. And I think, the way we thought about our team was we weren't really the typical kind of profile for the jobs that we have. So, for example, between our leadership team, we've all lived in like 20 plus countries. We have backgrounds, very diverse backgrounds, experiences from like airline pricing expert to pro golfer to people working in investment banking and finance. So just people with really diverse experiences that can approach a problem in a different way. And I think that's really important, and what I've seen throughout my career that has helped kind of think about approach a market or a product in a different way.
So the business Ingrid runs globally is supporting 30 to 40,000 small to medium-sized businesses, really global in scope. So can you talk a little bit about the makeup of those businesses and how you unlocked this potential for them?
Yeah, so part of the Operating Solutions business, so first of all, actually, how many of you have thought about making a game or have built a game or is thinking about building a game? There you go. Well, there are many of you out there, and building a game for fun is very different than building a business on top of a game and making a living out of it. So let's think about it. For all of you who probably launch a game, you have to get players into your game. Then you have to think about, okay, is the game mechanics in my game working? So you need some analytics and tools to be able to do that. If it's not working, I need some engagement tools to be able to then engage my players better. And then once your game is pretty popular, you have to make sure that when players come to your game don't crash. And so you need good hosting and infrastructure to be able to do that. And then last but not least, monetization tools for you to think about how to get a return out of all these investments that you put and actually make a living out of it. So, our teams are passionate about this and wake up every day thinking about, how do I enable the 2-person studio who is making a game to a 200-person studio within Electronic Arts or Activision Blizzard, right? And enabling these broad range of creators to create new economic opportunities for themselves. And in fact, 20% of all our creators come from underrepresented groups, which really kind of helps us wake up every day, be passionate about our work as well.
Thanks, Ingrid. So that really is, when we talk about aligning purpose, which I know is a key theme here at Decode, it really is around how to be aligned performance with purpose. So tell me more about how you're making and enabling these populations to make a living.
So actually, I'm going to turn that over. Jessica at Unity leads social impact, and she enables a lot of the outreach to some of the just the most amazing stories of our creators that uses Unity and how they have built businesses and built careers out of it. So actually, I'm gonna kind of switch back and interview Jessica for a little bit. Jessica, why don't you talk about some of the stories that you have?
That's very unfair, but classic Ingrid to take control. So as we mentioned, Unity has millions and millions of creators around the world. Coming from really, really diverse backgrounds. And we did that specifically because we need to hear the world's stories from populations that really represent the world. So being a little bit put on the spot here, I think that the story that really brings us to life the most is a creator named Lual Mayan. You can look him up. He's featured in a lot of work around gaming and innovation. Lual was actually a refugee who lived in a refugee camp in northern Uganda and spent, essentially the first 20 years of his life there. When he hit about 12 or 13, he started begging his mom for a computer. And his mother, who was a seamstress in the refugee camp, spent about 5 years saving her money to buy him a computer. And when he finally got the computer, he decided that what he wanted to do most was learn how to make video games. So he was able to teach himself on his computer in the refugee camp how to make video games, which essentially became a ticket to a greater opportunity for him. He eventually landed in Washington, D.C., published an incredible video game on peace, and then has taken his success in the video game industry and brought it full circle in opening up a refugee camp, specifically a coding camp, an art camp for refugees back in the refugee camp that he came from. So with Unity, we've got the opportunity now to support Lual and his artists and creators. We are supporting a 3-month program for about 500 artists in this refugee camp that really empower them to learn Unity skills and again bring this full circle, tell their own stories and create their own gaming experiences that they can publish to the world.
Amazing. And I think recently we also, with the situation in Afghanistan, you were doing some work there as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great example of how to empower our employees. How do we really empower an employee base to be able to make change? For those of you who are not, well, even if you are in school, you probably have the same thing happening, but certainly in work right now, really what we have is strong employee advocates who are championing social issues around the world. And Afghanistan was top of mind, one of many social issues that our employees are advocating for. So we are lucky enough, of course, we're in every country in the world, and so we have some incredible creators, female creators in Afghanistan called Code to Inspire. These female creators put together a coding camp in Afghanistan that taught Unity technology skills, and when everything happened with the fast exit out of Afghanistan, these women and their families were really concerned about their future. So Unity employees, about 80 of them championed to be able to determine how to support the women who wanted to leave Afghanistan and their families to be able to move into technology careers with Unity. So we have the opportunity now to support these families who are making a transition out of Afghanistan into the UK and working on their immigration and their transition into jobs with Unity. So I'm going to cut Ingrid off from interviewing me because we should really be going ahead and interviewing her. So moving it back to you, Ingrid. Just in your career, if you had one piece of advice for the students and the younger groups in the audience, what would it be around how they think through their career?
Yeah, 2 pieces of advice, if I may. So the first advice, these are just 2 advice that I've gotten over the years that has made an impact on me and how I think about, how I do work every day. The first one is from one of my bosses that was a basketball player, and his advice was, you miss 100% of the shot that you don't take. So what does that mean? It applies to so many things. It's about, sometimes the hardest thing is just to start. And whether it's to start a company, whether it's to start a new role because of, we're scared of failing, or to pick up the phone, to cold call a sales lead, or to pick up the phone to call that investor that you really want to connect with. And so take the shot when you have the opportunity to do that. The second is don't be a victim. No job, no career, no role is ever perfect. And I think, oftentimes, sometimes I'm like, why am I in this situation? But what I found is that there is always a way out to make the situation better. And I would just encourage all of you, when you find yourself in those situations, to think about what can I do to make this particular situation better.
Excellent, thank you. I think we've got a little extra time, so I'll throw in my advice too, as we
Yes, please, Jessica.
as we wrap up
Yes.
this, I guess what turned into a co-interview. So again, as I mentioned, I got the opportunity to go to Cal for business school. I graduated in 2000, which is probably before any of you were born in the audience. And I think what Cal and the business school program there really taught me was just the importance of defining what the change is in the world that you want to see, number one. And then number two, how do you align your personal talents with the change in the world you want to see? So I was incredibly passionate about education and access to economic opportunity when you were born into a community where you had the privilege of access to economic opportunity. And so that really, for me, has defined an incredibly enriching career for the last 20 years around how I can use the power of technology to provide access to education and economic opportunity. So take the time to figure out the change in the world you want to see and align your talents to that, which I think all of you are probably already doing. The second piece of advice I have, and actually Ingrid and I were just chatting about this before we got up on stage, is really making sure that you are identifying the right manager who's going to promote your career forward. It hasn't been the company or the job that's made the biggest difference for me in my career. It's been the right manager. And I can say for Ingrid, and listening to her before we got up on stage, she is really the right manager. She thinks about her talent and who she's looking to give a massive opportunity to. So make sure that you are really taking the time to, when you're interviewing for your jobs, to identify who the manager is. And if you're in a situation where that manager is not giving you a massive opportunity or upside, make sure you look for one that is. All right, anything else you want to say before we close this out?
Thank you so much for having us, and the best of luck.